specimen lake, probably the sort of premier specimen lake on the Todber Manor complex. Home to sort of our biggest catfish by a long stretch. They go to, the lake record 84 pound. There's several carp in excess of 30 pound. So yeah, it's a proper out and out specimen lake. I'm Mark Brown, general dog's body and shop boy at Todber Manor Fisheries, but I've come up here to kind of give Steve a little run through the swims up here. This one here being peg 1 up on the dam wall. It can prove a little bit tricky sometimes because particularly this time of year when it's a bit warmer, there's quite a bit of water in front of you. So although you've got all this open water here, some of the most productive areas tend to be the margins. So yeah, over to the right on the overhanging trees there produces quite a lot of fish. Tight up against the island as well, and of course over to your left you've got a nice margin. So definitely more of a margin peg despite the initial look from it. And yeah, it can be a little bit tricky to fish sometimes, but it's only a small lake, so they're never too far away. This is peg 2. Without a shadow of a doubt, one of the most productive and consistent pegs on the lake, regardless of the time of year. You've got the margin down to your left, which you share with peg 1. You can only get your rods so far down the margin here. Over on the H island, again, on a warm day like today, you'll see the fish patrolling the island there. The right-hand margin, overhanging trees, classic areas that are going to hold fish, but sort of the main area that people look to fish is the spot that's between the point of the island and then the point of the bank where it comes out between here and peg 3. That spot there is fantastic any time of year and will produce carp and catfish. So a real sort of top peg on this lake for sure. So this is peg 3. This one's probably going to give you the most amount of water of all the swims on the lake, along with peg 5. But probably this would give you the most water. The right hand margin here produces a lot of fish towards the tree over there. It's a great spot. You can't go much further than that because then you will sort of go into the peg 4's water. Open water can be great here, putting sort of good beds of bait out just in the jet. There's no specific spot out there, but just baiting up with a good amount of kit, boilie, pellet. Generally you can pick up the cats out there. Another obvious feature would be the island, tight up against that island, great spot. And then although it can be a bit of an awkward cast, if you go over towards the island over there, it is a bit of an effort now with the sort of bankside foliage that's grown up, but you'll see fish at this time of year swirling over there all day, so as tight as you can get, and you should pick up a few fish there as well. So this is peg 4. Undoubtedly the kind of tightest swim on the lake, but still a massive amount of features to fish to. Just down to my left, although you can't fish it from this part of the swim here for obvious reasons, it's a great area for stalking. But that can be, inhibited sometimes by putting lines directly across the entrance to the bay here. So we always say to people, if you fancy stalking, perhaps drop the rods away from the entrance of the bay, fish out to the island, and then, concentrate on that area without the washing lines going across. Obviously the reed bed over there holds a lot of carp and catfish, and it's quite easy to bait up by walking around as well. So that's an obvious place to fish, and also it's comfortable to get 2 rods over there due to the size of the weed bed. You've got the sort of initial bit close here, and then just further to the right towards the tree there, which was the tree I talked about from peg 3. You can fish this side of it, and then of course you've got the island. I think there's a fish just showed on the end of the island there. Yeah, there we go. There's a fish right tight to the island as I speak. A great spot underneath that tree on the corner. You can go as tight as you like. And also down to the right again, although you can't put the rods out from this part of the swim, if you want to put a stalking rod in down the side, there's a big area of water behind this island you can't quite see from here. So although a very small peg to look at initially, loads of options and certainly one of my favourites. Right, so this is peg 5. Again, a big peg by Paddock Lake standards. You've got the open water options from here, but I'll talk about the margins first. This sort of very tight into this little bay, it initially looks very appetising, but it is very shallow, so it's a difficult spot to catch fish from. You're better off taking your rods further round and actually fishing them just past the point of the reeds there in the gap between the island and the point. fish patrol around that area as they go around the island, and it's very easy to set a trap there, so a very obvious spot there. Again, as I talked about from peg 3, which is the one directly opposite over there, great open water peg, so no specific underwater features here to look for, just, you know, a tight bed of bait and a good amount of it, and the fish will soon find it. And depending on how friendly you are, if you put the whole of the lake or whatever, it's not sort of generally the done thing, because it would interfere with pegs 3 and peg 6 over there. But you can fish to the back of the island depending on how busy it is from here, and then of course you've got your right hand margin, so lots to go out in this big peg, and again a very consistent peg. So this is peg 6. Again, quite a few options in this peg. Down the left hand margin is very obvious, and easy to bait up down there as well, so you can just walk down there, bait it up nice and easily. Open water, again, you know, people kind of ignore the open water on this lake, but it's a good place to fish. You can bait it up easy, it's not a big chuck. Next obvious feature would be the corner of the island. I'm sure these guys have seen fish moving on the corner of that island. It's very shallow. If you go ultra tight, but you will catch tight to that island. Then you have the gap between the island and the sort of the round island in the middle, and then the H island, sort of presenting a bait sort of smack bang in between that, in the kind of bottom of the trough. That can quite often produce carp and cats. The right hand margin is a little bit more difficult to fish, but again that will produce fish as well, so yeah, good peg. So the final peg on Paddock Lake, peg 7. A little bit like peg 4 in that when you initially get to it you think, oh, I haven't got a lot of water to fish to here, but lots of things to fish to. Again, left hand margin here, there's a fish I think just showing down here now, so yeah, that's a good little spot. Again, you've got to be careful and just check what's happening over in peg 6, but between the two islands here, another great spot. I've seen loads of fish caught off the actual point of this H island here, so you know, again, it's a close-in feature but an obvious one. And then of course, just where you can see the ripples coming off at the back there in the middle of the H island, again another really good feature. Get as tight as you can over to the back of the reeds there, and that will generally produce 1 or 2 as well. So yeah, it's initially looks like a small peg, but loads of things to go at.
Well, that's lovely, Mark. What's the lake record in here?
Current lake record's around £35. Forgive me for not knowing the exact sort of weight, but
and
it's
for cats,
mid 30. And the catfish is the one known as Simba. That was the biggest one that's ever been out, £84. Although we haven't had anything caught that big recently. Sort of fish to £70 plus been caught. One of the biggest problems we have on here, due to the size of the catfish, is your average angler comes up here, their scales, they use the Reuben Heaton scales, they don't actually weigh heavy enough. So, you know, we'll always come up here during shop hours, and we're more than happy to verify weights and bring up our big set of scales so people can get accurate weights on fish. But undoubtedly there have been some very big cats caught in this year and going back further than that have never had a proper weight on, because their scales obviously don't go high enough. So, but verified weights, fish in excess of £70, lake record has been as high as 80. So yeah, some big cats in here, and there's equally as many cats as carp. So you know, as you guys have found out, you know, some days when the carp aren't on, you get plagued by catfish. Other times it can be the opposite way around, but during the warmer months the cats play a massive part. But at the same time, in the winter there's some excellent carp sports to be had up here as the cats shut down. Pretty much, you know, you get the very odd occasion where someone's had a red letter day and up here and had 5 or 6 in a day. They've sat on literally a ball of catfish. That's not the norm. They pretty much kind of tend to shut up shop around the end of October, November, depending on the frosts and things like that. But it's an excellent winter carp water. So yeah, it's a lake for all seasons.
And plenty of big fish to go at.
Yeah, certainly, yeah.
Certainly my average on here now is somewhere around the £20 mark just on this session. We've had a couple of smaller ones, but the majority of them have sort of been £19, £20, and I'm still waiting for one of those elusive 30s. How many do you reckon's in there?
At this time of year, I mean, they've, you know, put a fair bit of weight back on since spawning, so around about 5 30s at the moment, sort of different 30s, like known fish. And then there's several fish, numerous fish that are 25 plus. But as you rightly say, the average now is around about, because you do have every year we stock in some nice upper doubles, just to, you know, keep things coming on every year. You can't just sit back and think the fish are gonna, you know, live forever, let's say. So we always top up the stock every year just with 5 or 6 special scaly ones, and you've already had one of the really nice
I did, really
ones.
pretty fish.
Yeah, so that's the kind of the strain and the kind of fish that we look to put in here. So yeah, around £20, probably just over would be the average size of carp, and on the catfish front now, over £30 would probably be the average. I know you haven't sort of hit into it. Well, I know you lost one of the reel.
I've hit into lots.
Yeah, so and not necessarily landed them. They do fight well, and as you can imagine, with a lake of this size and with all the features, sometimes it's a hit and hold, and it doesn't always go your way. So yeah, the average cat size is probably 30 plus now, and yeah, there's a lot of fish in the sort of 40 to 60 pound bracket. So yeah, some good fishing.
The lads who were targeting the cats landed pretty much everything they hooked. We were fishing for carp and undergunned big time. It's the first time I've ever fished a water with big cats in, and to be fair, it was the carp I wanted, but I may well be back for the cats in the future. Thanks for your time, Mark.
No
Showing us round. Really, really informative. Helped us a lot, and I'm sure it'll help a lot of other people too. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, no worries, mate.